Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gents. We got two invaluable independent filmmakers here on the show. Once again, we got director Bobby Easley.
Hello.
Hello. Editor and cinematographer James Brenton.
How you doing?
How are you? I'm great. So, yes, we're going to be talking about the H.P. Lovecraft-inspired Witch House, which just released later this year. And we're going to do a fun, just laid-back Q&A. One former filmmaker, two current filmmakers. We're just going to circle around here casually. So, Bobby, what made you want to put your foot in the door and just say, I can do a better movie than what else I'm seeing?
Just talking about filmmaking in general, what made me just want to become a director?
Oh, totally. Yeah, what made you just say, hey, I'm going to stop looking at the TV and I'm actually going to organize a set, figure out some days.
Well, I've always loved the films ever since I was a kid, but I feel being from Indiana, we're stuck out in the middle of the country, and we're not near, Los Angeles or New York. We don't have aspects to the talent, the locations that you see. And so you have to tend to be more proactive here.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because there's not the big amount of projects just falling in your lap. And I got tired of just being an actor and sitting around waiting for horror films that were never coming. Mm-hmm. So grab a camera, write a story, and I acted in my own horror film, and that's how I kind of got my feet wet.
Stellar. Gotta make it. And you have, of course, done a lot of supporting roles in a bunch of movies I've seen, including Reprisal and The Trial of the Chicago 7. So what was it like being a featured extra?
Oh, well, I started off being background, and now I'm getting some supportive roles, but I feel like I didn't go to film school, and so I'm always on the lookout for ways to bridge that gap by on-the-job training, as you would say.
Well, you could have fooled me.
And
I thought this was pretty professional.
Well, there's some people that can learn on the job more than if you were a student. JD has the technical aspect that we totally need. And he is an educated guy from the Art Institute in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Institute of Art. And I went to the Marines. So my area of expertise is just the drive and the whole cheerleader, squad leader type, rallying the troops kind of guy.
Hey, being militant does count for a lot.
It helps, not everybody responds to it, but it just kind of keeps you focused and,
Okay, perfect. So yeah, JD, how did you decide that it was just time to just make something that you were conceiving in your head?
Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, I did, like Bobby said, I went to the Art Institute out in Philadelphia, and I've always, obviously, like most of us that get into this, you always, you grew up watching movies. And I, since middle school, since I could get my hands on a VCR and a camera, my buddies and I were running around the backyard shooting stuff. And to be honest, like Bobby said, living in Indiana, I never really even imagined that, oh, well, this is a possible career path. So it wasn't until later in life that I decided to go to school and just doing some broadcast stuff. And I've always wanted to do like a film, but to be honest, I need somebody like Bobby, who is the leader and who moves things along, because I've been saying that I'm going to produce write my own script, shoot my own movie for the last 20 years, and I just haven't done it. I've done handful of shorts and creative stuff like that, but nothing that is my own feature length story. And Bobby brought me in, and that's kind of him and I met and started talking about things we had in common. And he really just kind of he came to me and asked if I'd be interested, and I was like, this is going to be my chance. I either you take it or you don't, and I gotta stop whining about never being able to accomplish it, and just go do it, and just go do it.
Oh, totally. So you're from the short film scene too. I wasted so much time on those. Did you have a good experience on short films, or was it kind of just the typical hit and miss, learn as you go?
Most of the stuff I did, it was planned out, one or two actors, and it was just for my own entertainment, to be honest. I mean, we did a couple that were contests that we entered in contests and stuff like that. But I was never looking, when I started shooting them, the internet was, somewhat in its infancy.
Gotcha.
And so it was, we didn't have avenues to go, hey, I mean, I knew guys who had websites and had posted videos and posted their short films and stuff, but it wasn't in my wheelhouse. And I was just focused on trying to have a good time and hanging out with my buddies. And, that was kind of where I was at, because I didn't think, in all honesty, I was like, there's no way to do this. I just didn't believe there was. How do you get people when you don't have a budget of, $1 million? How do you get this crew here? And how do you get this crew here? And how do you get a visual effects supervisor? How do you get a script written? How do you get people to show up? And that was my mindset. And,
right.
And then the more I would, I'd watch some, documentaries and stuff on, filmmakers and obviously you're Robert Rodriguez, and then you hear some stuff about Spielberg is when he was a kid, and obviously it's a much different place now, but it's a much different world now. I guess anybody can have something out there tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this, Bobby coming along just kind of put that fire under me, and he got me to join on, and we've just been on this ride ever since.
Stellar.
Cameron,
Yes, sir.
you have got to see JD's short that he shot when he worked at Lowe's Theaters. When he won the contest for, oh my
man.
God, I love it. It's the right way to go see the movies and the wrong way to go see the movies. And he's got these disastrous script. It is freaking awesome. I love it.
I will. I think, I worked in a movie theater for a long time. I, started out, shoveling popcorn and tearing tickets, and then management, and then projection and stuff. And we ended up having, the company had a contest, and you could submit your video, and we won one and got placed in a second one. And then I think the one that Bobby's talking about, actually, it ended up ticking somebody off, and they'd rather not present that to the rest of the theater chain. But anyways, it was a lot of fun to do, and it was my first one we actually won back in the day. I won a state-of-the-art high-8 Sony camera.
Stellar.
So, yeah.
Not everyone can afford Panasonic, so go with Sony. Now, that's great to hear, because I had a very strict, crappy college where I was studying film, and everyone was basically you had to alert ahead of time where you were gonna check stuff out, and I was just like, screw that. You know, you guys are taking way too long in the technical stuff. You got to make sure the story's good and the actors show up, and you got something, you know, and learn, you know, as you go. And that's with the gaffer. But yeah, I totally went for a Sony camcorder. I just went for that a lot, and I got a lot of decent film. But you know, that was the 2010s compared to where you're talking about late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Late 90s, yeah.
When did you go to school, Cameron?
UT in Texas. It wasn't very good.
Well, that's cool, but like when?
Basically, I was class of 2015, and I had to learn basic. Long story short, I had too many snobs. Like, everyone was just focused so much on, I want to be like Christopher Nolan and everything. It's like, well, that's not going to happen. You know, you don't have a budget and everything. And they were just very anti like independent films unless it was like on the Sundance thing. And I was like, you guys, you know, this isn't a popularity contest, you know. And
Wow.
you got to actually, and they did away with the business department just because they didn't like the guy. I'm like, well, this is part of this. If you're going to be an independent filmmaker, you got to know how to pay for everybody instead of just, oh, I'll feed you, you know. It only works the first 3 times. So it was very unhelpful. It was not a college I recommend unless you want to become an engineer.
But that's very interesting to hear your insight on that, because that's some of the drawbacks I've heard of guys that had to go to film school. You have to work with other filmmakers on their projects, where for me, I just had to concentrate on my own. And
well, you learn a lot from working with other people, but the main issue was just the professors were just not organized, and they kind of didn't really have any room to be talking, because it's like one of them just worked at the local PBS, and the other, you know, again, he just liked to talk about teaching cartoons. So it's just like, so, and you'll love this. They kept saying, don't make anything that features zombies or lightsabers, because you can't relate to that in real life. Just really just batshit, just illogical remarks.
wow.
Like, don't make it involve Hitman because, oh, Tarantino's questionable. I'm like, well, maybe to you, but don't speak for everybody, dude.
Talk about buzzkill there.
They were.
I'd like to be able to make what I want to make, you know?
Mm-hmm. And so by the time you make these movies that you're trying to go from just a student film to an actual potential, you know, festival entry, by that time you're pretty much done with it, because you're like, it's not my vision. It's too much compromising, and half the story still doesn't make complete sense because it's a short, and I needed those 5 extra minutes.
Wow.
So no, that's cool that you guys kind of just did a rough and tumble, and then essentially just decided, hey, I'm going to keep doing this on the side outside my, you know, so Bobby, you did this already, having, you know, left the Marines, and did you have to do this in addition to an already existing day job?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I own a tattoo studio, and so I'm fortunate enough to be able to take some of my monies and put it in to back my own films. And so I did that for the first 6-7 films, backed them myself, you know, and now I don't have to so much anymore. You know, there's a point to it, but, you know, you got to have a day job or something bringing the money in.
Totally. How about you, Mr. Brenton?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I ended up getting into a lot of broadcast and corporate video and web video, and that's because I you know, because I didn't have the film, you know, I didn't really want to go to Chicago, and like Bobby said, we're not close to New York, and we're not close to LA, and you know, I made the mistake of coming back from the East Coast, and and ended up, you know, being as far away practically from any type of quote unquote Hollywood. And that, so I focused on that because it was a career that I knew I could make money at and support a family. And I'm still doing stuff that's, you know, it's not a movie, but it's creative. I get to meet a lot of different people. I work with a lot of guys, you know, we all have the same interests, and that's what kind of keeps me going. I mean, sure, the corporate stuff gets to be a drag because, there's only so many safety videos and talking heads that you can shoot, but it's kind of what I decided to do. I mean, I loved working at the movie theater, and it was just like, I've got to get into something where I'm producing stuff. I never really thought of myself as an artist, but I guess deep down, I like to create stuff, and I like people to see it. And I just like to get, feedback from people and hopefully make them, enjoy what they're watching and whatnot. So, I mean, that's kind of, this was kind of the next best thing I could get to from getting into a production studio, which that was originally my plan. My 5-year plan was to, hop out of college, go to Vancouver and work on X-Files.
Nice.
And that was kind of, I actually had all kinds of information on Lionsgate and, where they were located. And I was looking at apartments that were in the neighborhood and all kinds of stuff. And it just, life got in the way and I changed my direction and, but this has just been something that, is awesome to be a part of.
Yeah, by all means. So essentially, by working at the theater, you saw what people were clamoring and going out to see. So then you're just like, yeah, so I'm gonna make sure that I can be involved with a movie that gets played there eventually.
That's the hope. I mean, it would be cool to to see it. When you see it, we had a premiere that Bobby, when we had the premiere set up, that was something that was was really interesting, because here it is. Here's this thing that we shot, this story that we crafted and put together, and I'm actually seeing it on a big screen. And, it was just kind of it was a little surreal, but it was a lot of fun.
For sure.
JD, my brother, pretty successful guy, he has his philosophies on life and work and stuff. And he was talking about a lot of people have to do the need tos all day long. They need to work at this one job. And then there's people that get to do some of their want tos. And this way we have a nice balance of some of the need tos, like working our day jobs, but then we get to do what we want to do. And that's why Witch House is really special to us.
Oh, totally. And it seems like too many people like to live in fear or just essentially just pretty much live a soulless existence. Like just go to work, and then come home, and, feed kids and everything. It's like, well, you still got to make time for you. Otherwise you will just collapse, you will just.
You'll wake up and you'll be an old man and be like, what did I really have a full life of enriched, using my imagination? And I think it keeps us young, because JD and I literally talk on the phone like every day, or Facebook message about something from our childhood, whether it's a toy, a movie.
Well, and I told Bobby before, I wish that him and I would have crossed paths earlier on, because he would have been the push that I needed early on to have done more than just one feature-length film. I would have been, who knows, him and I this could have been our 4th or 5th outing together at this point.
Totally.
And it's one of those things where, I think we're a really good balance, because I'm not ready to go, he's able to push me through, and that's kind of what I need. And then I'm able to kind of rein him in when, because Bobby will tell you, he's excitable, he's ready to go, and that's when we're on the set, it's let's go, let's get this shot and moving on. And him and I thought we worked really well together, compromising and figuring out, oh, hey, me go listening to him and going, oh, this is what you want, and showing him and him going, yes, that's exactly it. And I think that's what's was the fun part. I mean, because let's face it, as much fun as it is, it's also, whether you like it or not, it's a job. I mean, it is fun, but it's a job, and sooner or later you're going to go, this is this day is going into hour 13, and you're just
Mhm.
wanting to pull your hair out. And you know, everybody's dragging, and it's just one of those things. So it can be a job, and that's where, you know, if you have, you know, people that are able to rally the troops, it helps.
Oh, totally. And unfortunately, you are going to get a few guys who clown around and they don't know how to kind of, you know, be funny and then, you know, get, you know, focus, you know, when it's time to come back to, you know, keeping the project on schedule. But
Yeah.
live and learn. So I'm going to ask you just how you got some of the actors. Very beautiful cast, by the way. I'm familiar with Andrea Collins through multiple avenues, believe it or not. Friend of our podcast, Sean Malloy, actually had the director of her movie Bad Apples on an episode of his podcast once upon a time. I'm friends with Rebecca Reinhardt, who, you know, worked with Andrea on the Embalmers film.
Mm-hmm.
And she's also worked on a bunch of stuff with indie horror filmmaker Jim O'Rear, who's best friends with Robert Lasardo, who you might know as the tattooed guy from CSI Miami and Nip Tuck. I met him at a convention.
Yes, I know Jim, and I would love to work with Robert one day. I've met Jim and Daniel, who was in he was in the Swamp Thing 2. He was the kid in it.
Oh,
and
okay.
Daniel, yeah, they all work on films together.
Plus, he
I
could
would
probably
like to
tell you.
really work.
He could also tell you some hysterical stories about working with Jim Wynorski. But
Andrea, yes, she is awesome.
oh, totally. And so Julianne Prescott, I've seen her listed on a few other things, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, that's coming out. And I haven't heard of Portia Chayalin, I think is how you pronounce
Her
it.
name's Michelle Morris, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, she has an alias that she goes by, which
sneaky.
is kind of like, yeah. But on IMDb, she's Portia, and we, you know, in our film, she's listed as Michelle Morris. But yeah. So
Nice.
we got these actresses from basically, we all go to the Days of the Dead convention. I'm sure you've heard of that before.
Yes.
And Julie, her husband at the time, ran, you know, he owns the convention. So there are so many celebs and actors running around, and these girls are just taking full advantage of it, you know. They've worked in a ton of stuff, and
Cast
we love
me in your movie.
Yeah, and I've always been in love with Andy since I met her. She's adorable, and she's from Tennessee, and just a ray of sunshine. She really brings like fun to the set. And then, as much as Julie and her just kind of clown around, as soon as you yell cut, oh my God, you don't even have to ask them to redo stuff. Sometimes they're so good. What do you think, JD?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they it was funny to see how, because I didn't know how this was going to be, being, you know, a bunch of, you know, people that I didn't know, obviously. But yeah, you know, watching them, you know, we're sitting here like doing a little bit of a table read or something over here, and while we're at the Hannah house, and they're goofing off, and everybody's having a good laugh, and then as soon as we're ready to roll, it was like bam, everybody come up to the attic, and we'd get set and start going.
That's
and
wonderful.
I mean, and to think that, you know, I mean, you know, we had these shots where Andy was, you know, she sat down there all afternoon and put that makeup on, and then she would have to hang around and wait for us to get to her shot. You know, I mean, you hear about that all the time, whether it be a indie movie or a Hollywood movie. And, you know, but that was the case. You know, she'd sit down there, she'd get all the makeup on, and then we were like, all right, hurry up and wait.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so gracious. She could have been a lot tougher than she literally sat there and said, guys, come on now. They're kind of burning my eyes. And we said, she would get into makeup, you know, 3, 4 in the afternoon, they're starting on her, and midnight, 1:30, we're looking at getting her on camera.
Yeah, it was
And
kind of.
she did it without complaining or griping, and would drive straight home after that and go to work.
Yeah, I don't know how she did it.
Oh, she's probably programmed whoever. She probably had a professional acting teacher as opposed to just some out of work guy who
Yeah, her and Julie, yeah, I love them. And Michelle, God love her too, because she is another one that can turn the crying on and off, the emotions that, once she gets it all together, you very rarely does she flub a line. Man, we were so lucky with that, JD, that all of them really knew their scripts and were so involved because they've been in different levels of production. So they kind of have a wide understanding of it. And that really helped them and us when they're maybe coming up with alternate ideas for a scene or something, that these girls know what they're talking about.
As opposed to you gotta remind them, hey guys, gotta keep this on track, and it's like, no, you don't have to babysit them, and you just have to tell them what you want in the take, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, and they were really good.
Plus we had to hurry up and work with them because they're like, hey, I'm needed on set for this film and that film when I'm done with you guys. So we're like, oh shoot, let's get it done.
There you go. They knew they were wanted everywhere, so then they're just like, hey, they do take this seriously, and they know their lines the days before, as opposed to, I'm sorry, I forgot. Who was your favorite out of those three, would you say?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'd really. It's a hard one to do. I mean, we had fun with all of them, and I unfortunately, there were a couple days where Bobby also has also he's directed and he shot some of his own movies as well, and there were a couple days that my job actually did get in the way, so he would take over. So I was unfortunate that I missed a couple scenes with Andy. But she was great. When we did we've got the witch scene where she's in the original clothing and doing those shots. That was a lot of fun. And we spent most of the time with Michelle, and we had a blast with her. She was able to really get along with everybody. And Julie was, she was like this. She was sweet. And I like working with Julie too. I just really can't pick. I mean, I know that we would all kind of sit around and chit chat at the end of the night, even if we were all exhausted, but how do you pick somebody? I mean, we didn't have anybody who was a real pain in the butt. I mean,
that's wonderful.
Obviously we're all guilty of getting on each other's nerves. I mean, when you're doing 12 and 15-hour days, sooner or later, somebody's going to go, look, I'm done. You know what I mean? Whether it's the actors, whether it's me, I will be the first to say there were a couple of days where our production manager had to kind of egg me along and go, listen, we're almost there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
It's never easy.
We will get to a state of like delirious like laughter because it's so late that we really can't believe that we're here. And I remember one day we had manwich for damn near lunch, dinner, and eating it all day, and we're so delirious. I'm acting like Martin Landau, who's dressed up as Bela Lugosi in the Ed Wood movie, and using the witch's cape and following JD and using this silly accent. JD, please, no more manwich. And just the stupid stuff that we would do to each other, like just to stay awake and alert to shoot the film.
You develop your own kind of running gags.
Well, it sucks because it's okay in the fall and winter because it gets dark so early. So you kind of can get home by midnight. But when you're in the middle of July, we're waiting. We have so much glass in that house. There's no way we could black stuff out. We were running into that all the time where we can't start shooting until 10 o'clock. Remember that, JD?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Bummer.
So yeah, we shot like in every season. We lucked out with that house, and they were the caretaker was gracious enough to let us keep coming back, and that was
Free property. That's great.
Yeah, that was we completely lucked out, and we were there every season. And you you get in that attic in the summertime, and we were all dying. And then the other extreme was, here we are standing out in November, and we're making Michelle run across the field in barefoot. And she's a trooper just for the fact of putting up with everything Bobby had her do.
Stellar.
Her first night on set, she had to emerge from a lake, like head all the way underneath it, wearing black contacts, and emerge from it and be very theatrical. And it was September, swampy, muddy bottom.
Oh.
It was, and then we ended up cutting the scene from the film.
Yeah, and it's literally one of our favorite things that we shot, because she did such an awesome job, but it just turned out to be a different. Just the story kind of went a different direction, which was unfortunate. But
well, live and learn. Okay, so I'd like to ask you, what were your main inspirations for the film in general besides H.P. Lovecraft?
I really love a lot of the 1970s and 80s giallo Italian films, like House by the Cemetery, Suspiria. I'm loving that stuff. Tenebrae. It's just they're odd films. They always stick, like Seven Doors of Death.
Yeah,
it's just From Beyond, all this stuff. They're really just, I don't know, like, it's hard to explain, so when you like something so much, what is it about it? It's the intense close-ups on the gore shots, just the creepy, it's not so easily digestible.
Right.
Like Friday the 13th, a van full of girls getting knocked off one by one by someone with a mask. These films are, there's a dog that just is like eating some meat by a church, and it has a meaning, but what does it mean? Kind of an example, yeah.
I could definitely see some Lucio Fulci influence here in this movie. So yeah, you mentioned From Beyond. Were you already kind of a fan of H.P. Lovecraft's literature, or were you just mainly just seeing movies that were inspired by that kind of gothic-y and Cthulhu kind of material?
Well, my dad is a big Hammer guy, Hammer horror guy.
Okay.
So, and I wasn't really into it because I'm a kid of the late 70s, early 80s. So I was wanting to see The Thing and all this Alien, all the newer stuff. But he was loving that. And I think that with the 70s and 80s Italian stuff was, I got a hold of that through friends and, them having obscure VHS tapes. Plus we were renting anything we could get our hands on at the video store. That made it easy to do. But Lovecraft, I only knew about him from, Iron Maiden and Metallica using his lyrics. I didn't really know anything about him or his stories, to be honest. I've heard of Cthulhu, but then Brian Yuzna had mentioned to me to go through some of his public domain, his free works, and look for some source material about your witch movie and see if there's something that'll fit,
Neat. How did you meet him? For those who don't know who Yuzna is, he was a collaborator with Stuart Gordon on movies like From Beyond, Reanimator, and the Dentist films. So no, that's cool that you got to meet him. Where did that come about?
Well, we were on our festival run for the film Belly Timber. And this is back in 2018, March. Then there's a Salt City Horror Fest in Syracuse, New York. And David McNaughton from American Werewolf. They had a couple celebrities there. We were there with John Dugan because he was in our film. John Dugan's from Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
And Brian Yuzna had a booth there and was just he was signing autographs. And I walked over, and there was a huge poster that, his film Reanimator was being shown there, and I was getting all these directors to sign their poster, and we were talking. I just told him about my films, and he told me he's starting a sales company, and we struck up a friendship there. And he told me my next project, he said he wanted to be with me from concept to what we're at now. And so I agreed to that, and that's kind of how that went. And
that's so wonderful.
History.
And
Yeah.
not just anyone does that. Usually it's just like, call my agent, we'll talk. And it's like he put himself out there, said, no, I believe you.
The guy is like a Mr. Miyagi on us, really. JD, how do you explain to him like our relationship,
Well, yeah, it's really hard to. It is hard to put it into words because, he's there. What was surprising to me was at no time did Brian or John Penny, these are two guys who have had success with their films. And John Penny's our other consultant we've been working with. And neither one of them ever tried to strong arm Bobby or take over, but they were very quick to say, this doesn't work. This doesn't work, And it was it was interesting because I didn't know how it was going to play out. I didn't know if these guys were really going to give us a time of day, or if they were, if they were just kind of, yeah. Well, you talk to us when you're done. I didn't know personally because Bobby and Brian Yuzna had been in discussions before I came along,
right,
and joined the team. And then luckily for me, Bobby brought me in to the fold, and I got to get onto the the Zoom calls and have the conversations with Brian and John, and it was it's a little surreal just because it's something that it like you said, usually it's you go talk to my agent, and then we'll discuss money, and then we'll talk. And these guys, believed in Bobby's idea, and were there for us.
Sweet.
Yes, they've actually shopped our films at American Film Market in Cannes. Like, these guys have really worked overtime with us on our story, and a lot more than the average sales agent would do. But the fact that they are who they are, John with Return of the Living Dead and his handful of films, there's a lot of knowledge between them. And John Penny, his dad went to college with Ray Bradbury. So
God,
he was growing up. Yes, he was growing up a young guy as Ray Bradbury was over at their house hanging out and stuff. So he knew him. So the wealth of knowledge from these guys is just, we're so lucky to be able to tap into it and have them be on our team. They want to see us make bigger and better pictures. That's why we're like their babies. They're trying to develop us into like a mean filmmaking machine.
For sure. So I'd seen that you had done a lot of assistant camera and cinematography for other shorts and films, most notably Body Snatch, which was by one of the creators of Final Destination. So were you able to kind of relay a lot of your visual kind of look and influence to JD pretty well?
Yes. I just, how it is, like when a man from China learns this and then a guy from Texas learns this, they both know what they know, but it's just how can we get on the same page and work together, You
do shotless or more storyboarding?
Well, I'm used to I'm an artist myself, so I have an idea of what I want to do, but when you're trying to describe something to a cinematographer, you've got to have something visual for him to look at, because without it, he's got his own creative mind put around it. And then if we don't have something solid on paper for us to look at, JD was really tough on me about having storyboards, and I get it now because things moved so much easier and fluid when we were able to just refer to some drawings, just little sketches.
But right, that's great, because I worked on so many amateur movies where they would refuse to do even that, and that's when I knew this is going to be terrible, because no one's speaking the same language. We've gone for like 5 different crew members, And
the good thing is, Bobby would put together storyboards, and it wasn't like either one of us, this is it. There's no leniency. This is the storyboard. This is how we're shooting it. It was actually kind of like what you said. It made us at least see the scene in the same way, so that when we got to that scene, we may be setting up, and we could kind of sit there, and I could frame a shot, and then he would be able to see, even though we're trying to go with what the storyboard said, we could kind of go, oh, you know what, this isn't going to work here. This is not how we envisioned it. So then we were able to, adapt from the storyboards, so we didn't, we knew going in what we wanted to accomplish, 9 times out of 10.
Stellar.
But I mean, and maybe it wasn't even that, maybe, because let's face it, we still went in a few times going, oh, we're going to change this scene here. And then, so you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants at that moment. And you're like, okay, so if we set this here and I'll light this back here and we'll do that, and, a lot of times, Bobby, got to the point where he trusted me. So he could go and work with the actors or talk to the actors and say, hey, we're going to change this. And he would go and work with them. Or he'd go out and get drunk. I don't know what he's doing. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But so I would set up the set, and then he would bring the actor, or he would come up, and then we would go over it, and then he would call the actors. And, that's just kind of the way we worked.
Stellar. So you conceived the script with co-scribe Ken Wallace, who worked with you on Belly Timber, which had previously won for Best Actress. How did he brainstorm the script with you for Witch House?
Well, I had written a really rough idea of my first treatment of what I wanted to shoot, and this crazy story. After going through Lovecraft and his short story, it's very hard to wrap your brain around that and try to. His work. It's just out there, and Ken. I started looking at this and I was like, Ken really did good on Belly Timber, and he's a writer. Let's bring him in and see what he can do, make sense of this, because this type of material is so crazy. You almost have to have someone else working on it with you so people don't think you're crazy.
Oh, it's very true. Unless you're pretty much writing for like an anthology show, it's pretty easy to have just some snob just kind of come up to you and they just look at you like you're a moron, and you're like, well, you liked all these other kinds of movies, so why are you looking at me like I'm an idiot? It's people seem to think that, I don't know, it's like it's all like done like after the fact or something. They don't seem to realize you have to actually be a good reader and a writer, to go from script to screen.
Ken's strength is when we go home and JD's thinking about shots, I'm just thinking about money or whatever else. Ken is laying in bed thinking about the script. He is reworking things, developing subplots. The next morning you call him and he's like, so check this out. Did you check your text? I'm like, no. He's like, he will leave half of a novel for you about how the film can go this way. And he really, really great to have right there, because he's referring to the script, every page, everything, making sure we're not forgetting stuff, and just very thorough with it. And then he just wraps his brain around it in a way that we can't. And so that's his strength and our advantage for that.
Stellar. How did you conceive your production company, being Horror Wasteland Pictures International? It's pretty badass.
Thanks. Some of my friends have said that's long as hell. But I don't know. I like the idea kind of a universe where all this stuff happens. Like how Marvel has their universe, and so it's like a horror wasteland, this place where all these different stories are universe, like a Twilight Zone of sorts.
You answered one of my questions. I was tempted to improvise there. Are you actually thinking of kind of, when you do another movie, kind of having a little Easter egg indicating that there might be a character that's returning from one of your earlier projects?
Oh, I would love to do stuff like that. I mean, I like reading about films that have done that in the past and looking at it, and it just kind of adds a little mystique to it.
Mm-hmm. Is it or is it not part of one reality or the next? And you mentioned Seven Dwarfs of Death, and everyone still debates: are they all the same universe, or are they just thematically similar? Even Lucio Fulci can't tell you. He's just having too much fun. you know.
Yeah, and
blowing
those
everyone's
films
mind.
are so artsy. They're so artsy and well shot, you know, and just dramatic looking that sometimes you just get lost in it and you're looking at the visuals and then,
Hmm.
oh my God, you know.
Have you recently purchased the Blu-ray trilogy pack? Just
Oh,
as a
no,
friend.
no, no, not yet.
It looks really good. It's
Yeah,
also
I think
it's region free too. So yeah, no, that's great. So I was really just I got a Hellraiser kind of vibe from the voiceover you introduced the film with, and the credits kind of reminded me a bit of Seven. Did you have any other kind of specific movies that just kind of conjured up when you were just in post adding the
well,
touches?
there's a couple nods. JD suggested that we run towards the house, you know, like a kind of an ode to Evil Dead, you know, and speed it up and
Alright.
make it so when you'll see that in the film, and it fits really well. We like, I'm a major Alien fan, so whenever I think of things that scare me and it's dark, slimy, and wet, you know, creatures, and I just love Giger's designs, and I think just kind of Brian and John are kind of an older generation to where they're looking at some of the films like Devil's Reign, and
Oh,
some of
sweet.
those. Yeah, they were getting those type of vibes from the film, and
Fun fact.
in a strange way, JD, we named our character Alice, and this film is so like it feels like she's going down a spiraling hole into madness, you know, and then jumps out of it, and then just for a second, and then oh my God, back into it, and it kind of has that feel.
By all means. Were you even inspired by more kind of cultish, kind of infamous kind of movies where you're like, hey, it's got a cool concept, even though it's kind of known for being so bad it's a good movie, and it's like, what would I do if I took part of that idea and but made it good? Because obviously I'm here to do a great job.
Sure. I mean, I feel like all of those movies from the 80s that we love, that we grew up with, all have excellent payoff scenes. You know, like Johnny Depp getting sucked out of a hole in a bed, you know. Freddy Krueger's kind of corny in my mind. You know, I don't want to say that to offend any of the fans out there, but he was just a wisecracking guy. He was kind of part comedian, part boogeyman.
Hmm.
And so I wanted something more serious on that end of things. And I think I like taking some of my favorite. You know, what do you think, JD?
Yeah, I'm definitely. It's kind of funny, when Bobby talked to me about the look and feel of the script. He mentioned the Italian horror films and whatnot, and like I am I'm a kid of the '80s, and so most of my stuff was anything I could find on the video shelf that had a foil cover I was going to rent, because I liked that the cheese factor, and it usually had a lot of blood and guts,
Right.
and just kind of the typical, horror film, and so I didn't know a lot about the Italian scene. I had seen Suspiria, and and that was the one that jumped into my head, and I knew that's kind with that I knew that was kind of the look he was going for, and I'd seen obviously some documentaries and things about it, about Italian cinema and stuff. So I kind of had that going for me. But for the most part, I'm, that, like he said, I'm an Evil Dead fan. I thought it'd be kind of fun to try to, throw that in there. And, I just wanted to make sure that we, gave the audience a fun ride. I that's just kind of what I was looking for. I didn't want to. I wasn't. For me, like I'm just the DP. And I was. So I was kind of working with Bobby's vision, and that's anything that was, I'm trying to think what's the best way to put it. I would try
Get
to
brought
get
on as sorry.
yeah, I was going to say what I'm trying to get what's in his head out for everybody to see. And I think with
While I'm trying to figure out what was in H.P. Lovecraft's head.
yes, well, and that's and that goes in with all the other movies. That,
I don't think anyone knows, but we got an idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, I can tell you, multiple times, Bobby and Ken and I would have conversations where I would just say, I don't know what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
By reading but we would just discuss the script. And because of, like you said, the H.P. Lovecraft stuff is so it's cosmic and it's bizarre and kind of twisted and so I had to have Bobby and Ken kind of lead me into the darkness sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
or out of the darkness.
I'll have to say, us three guys on set were like three teenagers trying to make a film. And the women really helped carry this film. They carried us out of the woods on their back. Beth Hale, our line producer, really would take our ideas and spit them back at us too. Like her input, like we really played well off of each other. And with her handling all the logistics day to day, food, wardrobe, who's on set, who's not, who's late, what scenes have you shot, getting this done, clearing set dressing, tons of things. She would even later on, well, after we're done shooting, call me up and say, hey, I thought about something. And
it's wonderful.
It's like, wow. And then this film is a female-driven film. Like, we've got major producer work going on with the heads of departments, Aaron Trimble, who did a tremendous job with like the look of this film, because we know we wanted to make witches, but we don't know how to attach the bones to the twine and body paint all these women in the coven and they look like they come right out of the set of Quest for Fire. And we basically, they really, like, turkey feathers. Every day she would come to set with something that she made in her garage using a cow skull or animal skull, bone, rattle looking thing. And these women really all worked. And that was the big key, is if they didn't all work well together, we weren't getting anywhere. And Aaron brought in, Jocelyn, it took a team of these girls to do makeup on witches, coven women, and then demons and all the other monstrosities that we had going on. There was just a constant assembly line of stuff going on. And it's really funny that Shonda Laverty, an actor who has a real strong role in Etta, the old lady in the film, he is a very a pillar of the film, JD. She would come in and just, hey guys, everything, and then boom, right into character. And her kills, her work that she did, special effects, stunt stuff. I mean, what's one of the things? I mean, JD, her killing. There's a kill that she does. We're not going to name any names, but
right, yeah, she just really dove into it, and we, that was. Bobby's right. The women who worked on the film, for me, I figured if we heard something from one of them, like, if there was grumblings that such and such wasn't going to work, we kind of would in my head, I was listening, because they did. Beth was always there to kind of, she, if she wasn't trying to calm Bobby down, she was trying to calm me down. If we would
calm down Scott Longere, the caretaker of the house. He finally said, look, you guys, here's a key and a code. Just have at it. Just clean up after you're done. He wasn't waiting around for 3:00 every morning.
Gotcha. What really prompted you to make them be part of your team that you had assembled? Were they kind of, did you just know them through some of the actors or other pals at the convention, or?
Well, this is kind of a two-part thing here. I'll let JD talk to the second part, but when I work with someone that shows up, being an indie filmmaker, we're not paying their bills by them being in our films.
Mhm.
And get the ball rolling, like you said, your first couple films. This is our first major film, and we had to have the backing of not only our executive producer, but a lot of volunteers. And you may know this too, Cameron. It's the people that come at you and say, "Hey, can I be a part of this?" And then they don't show up.
Mhm.
And then you got that dedicated few that really loves what you do. And I asked Lee Hale, a guy on our set, that he's done electrical work for us, transportation, just batteries, the guy's done a ton of stuff. And I asked him, "Man, I can't believe you guys are here." He says, "We do it because we love you." And that right there is and so JD really is not of the horror community like I am. And so he came on set and was just thinking there'll be a couple people showing up, but he realized it's,
Oh yeah, it's I was totally with, other than Bobby, I was an outsider. And so when I showed up that first day, I didn't know what to think. And this community was that's what it was. It was a community of people. I was shocked at the people who returned day to day, and were there just to support us in anything that we needed. And that's kind of, for me, that's what kept me, on these long days. That's what keeps you sane, because you realize, oh my gosh, everybody's here, everybody's in the same boat, and we're all still here. And most of the time we're smiling, if we're not choking each other. No. But yeah, I just think that, for me, I'm assuming, Bobby, that you have, worked with a handful, if not all of them, once before on one of your other features, or had known them, and then you knew that if they invited people, hopefully that they would be, trustworthy and reliable. And I think that's what you look for, especially, like you said, an independent film. They've got to have fun, and they got to be even if I noticed, even if they're not doing something the entire time, as long as they feel like they're needed, they want to come back, because they want to be a part of that community. And that's what was cool.
They gotta believe in you, because when you tell someone you're making a film and then they're there every night for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, months, a year, and they don't have any physical thing to hold in their hand to see where their work's going. They're just hoping that you finish it and that they can see it one day, and that maybe you get lucky to go somewhere. But they got to believe in you. And I think those people that do that, I think one of the compliments that I really get a lot when I'm done with a film, and I love it, it's so genuine, for my friends are like, "Bobby, you're getting better. Bobby, this is much better than your last one." That means the world to me, because they know we're going places. And
well, you've got me now, so that's why.
Yeah. And I just can't believe, Steve, talking about believe, some of the people like Toby Cooper and Mindy Jane, that they did not complain one time over the course of 2.5 years.
Yeah, the scoring, the setups, the staging, it all feels so natural, just so well planned out. I'm curious how you even casted the freaky man in the opening vision sequence and orchestrated the ritual sequence.
Okay, well, his name is Bill Levin. He's a pretty well-known figure here in Indianapolis, actually internationally known. He is the founder of the First Church of Cannabis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He was comfortable doing a horror movie.
Look him up. He's ran for city council. He has run for governor. The guy is just a staple in the community. He knows the prosecutors, all the cops, everybody. They love him. He donates stuff. He's big in the community, loves animals, all that stuff, and loves acting, and he knows all the tattoo artists too. And he used to throw a ball every year at the Vogue Theater for the tattoo artists to come. And
sweet.
He has such a unique look that I'm like, "Bill, would you please play this crazy preacher in my, slasher film, and he did. And then Would You Please Play a Colonel? Even his voice, he smokes a cigar, and he did a perfect World War II colonel. And then this, he just has that sorcerer, mad mathematician look, and just the lighting on him. And we just rubbed some, brown grease paint on his teeth, and he went right at it. And 2 takes, 3 takes, perfect.
Stellar. Do you think he kind of gave you some extra respect on set for people who kind of revered him, followed him? You take another famous name and you put it in your project.
Oh, well, one thing about Bill is I genuinely love him. Him being around, his aura, everything, he's the kindest guy that you know, and just puts a smile on your face, and he will bend over backwards. Anytime I've needed anything in my career, he has said, Bobby, you need a warehouse? Hey, Bobby, this guy has a food truck. Hey, Bobby, do you need this? You need a theater to show your film. Do you need, Bobby, I'm putting this show on. I want you to enter these. Yes, all like, wow. And so at the drop of a hat, he'll do whatever we ask, and we are so grateful that we have him in our troupe of actors. He's definitely that guy. John Dugan too, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's been in 4 of my films. I'm about to work on an action martial arts horror film called The Ultimate Throwdown coming up, and he will be there on set with me. He's an awesome guy, and to see a lot of it's through Bill Philpott and Days of the Dead.
Sweet. Going
to it for so many years, we start seeing Bill Moseley and Kane Hodder. We worked with those guys too, and you start seeing them, and you start off as a fan, and then now you're on the other side of the curtain, and now they're like, you're eating that shit for lunch, and you're like, yeah, get off me. It's it's really cool to be on that side of the curtain. Very special, and humbling. The Rats, we worked with, was it 2 or 3, JD?
Yes.
You called them, were their names actually that, or was that just sarcasm in the credits? You called them Lydia and Ash.
And Bowie. What was really neat about them is it's messed up what you're trying to do when you're working with a rat, because JD is trying to light this setup so he can see the rat. And in Hollywood, obviously, films, it involves a lot of light thrown at a nocturnal creature that shies away from light. And anytime you would hit that rat with lights, it would bolt away from that. And so we had to find a happy medium, and then only get about 2 to 5 takes before the rat would eat enough and go to sleep.
Right.
It can be done, people. It can be done.
Oh, yes. Rats like treats, and you got to give them treats to do what you want them to do. I think the thing that JD and I think that sparks us, I think it's fair to say I'm speaking for him too, is we're like, dude, did you ever think that we would ever, when we were kids, work with Roy from Close Encounters or direct Richard Dreyfuss? Did you ever think we'd talk to Chappie Sinclair or direct Louis Gossett Jr.
Right.
or interview Carrie Hinn from Aliens? And it's like such a Forrest Gump, like dreams come true type awesome story.
By all means, do you have any other future plans for this movie in terms of like how you're going to market it? I mean, okay, so let me reword that because that's fucking stupid how I worded that. But what's the game plan after the holidays roll around? Do you really have like kind of VOD and then limited release, or are you going to do limited and then maybe VOD?
JD?
Well, we're currently working on our electronic press kit, and we are going to have domestic distribution, hopefully in the summer of 2022. And then we're just going to try to, keep continuing through with our international film festival circuit right now. We're up to, I think 17. Is it 17 or 18 that we're up to as far as
18
selections?
18 select.
Yeah, 18 selections and 7 wins. So it's been a pretty fun ride, and I think that hopefully after that, Bobby's talked a little bit about this with me before. But
congrats on winning the Stockholm City Film Festival Award for best horror film, Bobby.
Yeah, Yeah, we got a handful of those. We just got one from Tokyo, right?
Yes.
And
Russia.
Yeah.
From St. Yeah, India, Turkey, Amsterdam, France. We went Hallucinia. Yeah, so it's really exciting. Anatolian and just Turkey and Amsterdam, Russia, Sweden. It's really interesting to see people from all over the world, different walks of life, different culture, different cinematic, tastes.
Very riveting, yeah.
To be able to get that many eyes on your project feels great. I know it doesn't make money right now, but it really opens us up to the possibility of distribution, internationally and across different markets. But if you're listening, Australia, let us in a festival there. I love Australian horror, and they're going to be the last ones to
exploitation, baby.
Yeah. Oh, not to be off topic, but I love Australian horror because they're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's just like, it's so isolating.
Mm-hmm. Well, stellar. I, keep promoting this movie, and I'll definitely keep sharing links to this. This was a great screener out of all the ones I've watched this year. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
You heard it, guys. They want their dream to become reality. So any other indie filmmakers listening in, do yourselves a favor and keep pushing. No.
Yep. Keep an eye open for Witch House.
H.P. Lovecraft's Witch House.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yes.
I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers, the Google Play, Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ.
Ah.
We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say
Ah.
all that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Yeah. don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be a
could you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one laughs, plot holes, or gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Welcome to Who Was She podcast. I am your host, Tara Jabari. After a decade working in documentaries, marketing, and all things digital media, I found that podcasting is a strong medium to share stories. After years of producing for others, I decided to start my own biographical podcast. Who Was She will focus on the life of a woman throughout Baha'i history. The first season is about Lydia Zeminoff. Lydia's story explores the subjects of the power of language and faith. Her father invented the universal language Esperanto, and she came from a Jewish family and became a Baha'i. She grew up during World War I and was killed during World War II in a concentration camp, despite heroic efforts to save her life. How can one person's life intersect with so many others, connect across borders, and inspire a biography which inspired this podcast? Over the next few weeks, I will share her story with you and the lives that were most affected by her and those who affected her life as well. They include her father, Ludwig Semenoff, her spiritual mother, American journalist Martha Root, and the Baha'i German soldier Fritz Mako, who worked for the resistance undercover while having to serve the Nazi Party. I want to thank the author Wendy Heller and George Ronald Publishing for their blessing to let me use Heller's biography, Lydia, The Life of Lydia Semenoff, Daughter of Esperanto, as a main and instrumental resource for this podcast. So please subscribe and learn about this amazing woman who traveled through 3 continents in an effort to bring unity through the power of language. You can also find more information on our Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Who Was She Podcast. Music was composed and performed by Sam Red. I am your host, Tara Jabari. Join us next time as we begin our journey about Lydia Semenoff.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything: pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
Are you sick of the same old stale podcasts? Well, then join Vanessa and Darren as they dissect movies of all kinds. The 2 lifelong cinema lovers bring their favorites, curiosities, and first-time watches to the operating table and inject them with a healthy dose of snark. Then there's the waiting room, where they examine books and short stories. So just look for them on Apple Podcasts and where fine podcasts are available. They're part of the Legion Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at VDClinicPod. Join them on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/VDClinicPod. Or email them at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. They're ready to cure what ails you. And still, they just might be a little contagious.
Hi there. It's Heather from the Watching Netflix Without You podcast. Did you know that there are over 1,200 Netflix original feature films and documentaries? And that number is only growing. So I've made it my mission to watch as many as I possibly can. Then, with a delightful guest or guests, disclaimer, more often than not my brother Ryan, we spend an episode rating, reviewing, and discussing a film at length. The first half of every episode is spoiler-free for those who haven't seen it yet, and in the second half, after a very clear spoiler warning, we dive into it. And that's really about it. You can listen to Watching Netflix Without You on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up